She did everything right. She was kind. She was patient. She sat by the phone and waited. And the more she gave, the faster he pulled away. That is not bad luck. That is a pattern. And in the next few minutes, you will understand exactly why. There are four specific things, four small habits, four quiet moves that slowly kill your value in the eyes of someone whose mind is wired to pull back the moment things start to feel too close. And almost nobody notices they are doing these things until the damage is already done. So here is a question before we go further. Have you ever felt yourself getting smaller inside a relationship? Not louder, not more sure of yourself, smaller. If that word just touched something in you, stay with me, because what you are about to hear might explain years of confusion in just a few minutes. Let's talk about how the mind works when a person is built to avoid closeness. Not to judge them, not to paint them as the villain, but to understand the wiring behind it. Because understanding that wiring is the only real way to stop losing yourself inside it. A person who avoids closeness is not cold by accident. Somewhere early in life, their mind learned that closeness equals danger. Not always physical danger, but emotional danger. A need that was never met. A moment of vulnerability that was punished instead of comforted. A closeness that slowly turned into control. So the mind built a wall, quietly, piece by piece. And that wall does not fall just because you are lovable. It does not fall just because you are patient. It only comes down, if it ever does, when the nervous system finally feels safe enough to lower it on its own terms, in its own time. This is the part almost nobody understands. Real emotional understanding is not about reading someone's words. It is about reading their nervous system. And a nervous system built around avoidance runs on one main rule. Freedom comes first, closeness comes second. The second that freedom feels threatened, everything shuts down. Warmth turns into distance, interest turns into silence, and the person left standing there, confused, wondering what she did wrong, is often the one who gave the most. Picture it like a thermostat. Every relationship has a setting for how much closeness feels comfortable. For most people, that setting shifts slowly and gently over time. But for someone wired toward avoidance, that setting is narrow, very narrow. Too much warmth arriving too fast, and an internal alarm goes off. Not because the warmth itself is unwanted, but because this person was never taught that warmth is safe to receive without some hidden cost. So the mind does what any system does when it senses too much pressure. It closes a valve. It creates distance, not out of cruelty, but out of a kind of self-protection that was built long before this relationship even began. And here is the part that changes everything about how you should respond to this. That thermostat cannot be moved by force. It cannot be pushed, argued with, or loved into expanding faster than it is ready for. Every attempt to force it, every extra message, every extra reassurance, every extra piece of proof that you are safe to be close to actually tightens the valve even more. Because force, no matter how well meant, feels like pressure. And pressure is the exact opposite of what an avoidance system needs in order to slowly, on its own schedule, let someone in. This is why the four behaviors we're about to walk through matter so much. They are not just random dating mistakes. Almost every time, they are attempts to manually override that thermostat. Attempts to force safety, force reassurance, force closeness through sheer effort. And every single one of them backfires in almost the exact same way. Not because the woman doing them is a bad person, but because effort aimed at someone else's fear almost never works. The only effort that actually works is effort aimed inward, toward your own steadiness, your own life, your own sense of self. That idea is the thread running through everything you're about to hear. That is the strange, almost unfair truth sitting under this whole topic. The more effort you pour in at the wrong moment, in the wrong way, the more value quietly drains out. Not because you are not enough, but because of how an avoidant mind interprets that effort. So today, we are going to break down the 4 exact behaviors that cause this drop so you can spot them, catch them early, and protect the one thing that actually keeps someone like this engaged. And that is your own sense of self. Let's start with the first one, chasing the silence. This is the most common one, and it feels so natural that most women do not even realize they are doing it. He goes quiet, and instead of matching that quiet, she fills it. She sends another text. She calls. She sends a message explaining what she meant by her last message. She shows up earlier than planned just to close the gap that opened between them. Here is what is really happening underneath. Silence to a mind built around avoidance is often just a way of settling down. It is not always rejection. Sometimes it is simply the nervous system pausing, processing, resetting itself. But when that silence gets chased, when it gets filled right away with more contact, more reassurance, more presence, the avoidant mind reads it as pressure. And pressure is the one thing that system cannot handle well. So what happens next? The wall goes up faster. What was meant to be a short pause becomes something longer, maybe permanent. And something else shifts too. Chasing throws off the natural balance. Without saying a single word, it says, "I need this more than you do." And the moment that imbalance becomes visible, value drops fast. This is not about playing games. This is not about pretending you do not care. It is about understanding a simple emotional rule. Whoever needs the relationship less holds more emotional weight. Whoever chases the hardest holds the least. Someone who avoids closeness is scanning, whether they realize it or not, for signs of that weight. And chasing removes it instantly. Picture 2 versions of the same moment. In the first version, he goes quiet for 2 days. She notices, feels anxiety rising, and sends a message. No answer. She sends another, softer this time, just checking if everything is fine. Still nothing. By the 3rd day, she is replaying every recent conversation, trying to figure out what she said wrong. And when he finally resurfaces, casual, like nothing happened, she is so relieved that she never even brings up the silence. She just absorbs it. And underneath, without either of them saying it out loud, a lesson has been taught. Disappearing costs nothing. She will still be right there waiting. In the second version, he goes quiet for 2 days. She notices, feels that same pull, but instead of acting on it right away, she goes to dinner with a friend. She finishes something she had been putting off. She sleeps well, because her sense of being okay was never actually tied to how fast he responds in the first place. When he resurfaces, she is warm, but she is not waiting. There is no interrogation, no anxious energy sitting under the surface, just a woman who kept living her life. And that difference, even though it might look small from the outside, sends a completely different message. It says, "My world does not pause for your silence." And that message, more than any clever text, is what actually holds an avoidant partner's attention, because it is the one thing they cannot predict or control. The fix is not complicated, but it is uncomfortable. When silence shows up, let it sit. Do not rush to fill it with noise. Let your own life get louder instead. Your friends, your work, your mornings, your evenings. Let that space be filled by you actually living, not by you anxiously waiting. That one shift, from chasing the silence to staying inside your own life, is one of the most protective moves a woman can make. Before we move to the second one, here is something worth pausing on. If this is landing, if you are recognizing a pattern from your own life right now, type the word recognize in the comments. Just that one word. It helps more people find this video before they repeat the same pattern. And while you are there, go ahead and subscribe, because the next 3 points go even deeper than this one, and you do not want to miss where this leads. Number 2, losing your own shape. This one is quieter than chasing. It does not look dramatic from the outside. It looks like agreement. It looks like flexibility. It looks like being easygoing. But underneath, something serious is happening, a slow wearing away of who you actually are. It starts small. You used to enjoy going out on Fridays. Now you do not, because he does not want to. You used to have opinions about politics, about food, about how you wanted to spend a Sunday. Slowly, those opinions get quieter, softer. You start agreeing before you have even checked in with what you actually think. Not because your mind changed, but because keeping the peace started to feel more urgent than keeping yourself. There is a psychological trap hiding inside this pattern. Real emotional understanding teaches us that attraction is not built on sameness. It is built on difference, on the sense that there is a whole separate person standing on the other side of the relationship. Someone with their own center of gravity, their own opinions, their own life, that does not simply bend to fit someone else's shape. The moment that center disappears, the moment a woman becomes an extension of what he wants, instead of a person with her own wants, something in the avoidant mind loses interest. Not because he is cruel, but because there is nothing left to reach for. No mystery, no pull, just an echo of himself looking back at him. This feels backwards to most people, because most people believe closeness comes from merging, from becoming one unit, thinking the same way, wanting the same things. But real closeness, the kind that actually lasts, comes from two whole people choosing each other again and again, not one person slowly disappearing into the other. Think of two trees growing near each other in a forest. The healthy ones send their roots deep into their own ground, and their branches reach toward the light in their own direction. And still, somehow, their canopies end up touching, overlapping, sheltering the same patch of earth. Neither tree had to give up its own roots for that closeness to happen. That is what real connection actually looks like. Not two people fused into one shape, but two whole shapes standing close enough to shelter each other. Think about the woman who used to run every Saturday morning. It was hers, nobody else's. She would come home energized, a little proud of herself, ready for the day. Then the relationship began. He was not a morning person, so Saturday mornings slowly turned into time for being together instead. First it was occasional, then it became the default. A year in, she could not remember the last time she laced up her shoes before 9 in the morning. Nothing dramatic happened. No argument, no demand. Just a slow, quiet trade, made one small yes at a time, until a whole piece of who she was had been handed over without either of them really noticing. Here is why this matters so much to someone wired toward avoidance, more than it might in other kinds of relationships. Avoidant attachment often carries a deep, sometimes unconscious fear of being consumed, of being needed so completely that there is no room left to breathe. When a partner starts losing her own shape, when her calendar becomes his calendar, when her opinions start mirroring his opinions, that fear does not calm down. It grows stronger, because now there is a whole person leaning on him for her sense of identity. And that feels like exactly the kind of closeness his nervous system was built to run from. So if you have noticed yourself shrinking your opinions, canceling plans with friends, letting your hobbies quietly fade, softening your voice until it barely sounds like you anymore, this is your signal. Not to become harder, not to become distant, just to come back to yourself. Keep the Friday plans. Keep the opinion. even when it is inconvenient. Keep the version of you that existed before the relationship started shaping your edges away. That version is not the obstacle to being loved. It is the entire reason you were noticed in the first place. Number 3, explaining yourself into smaller and smaller pieces. This one hides inside good intentions. You want to be honest. You want to be understood. So when there is tension, when a text gets misread, when there is a moment of distance, you explain, and then explain the explanation. You clarify your tone. You clarify your intent. You go back 3 days later to clarify something everyone else has already forgotten, except you. Here is what over-explaining actually communicates, whether you mean it to or not. It says, I am anxious about how you see me. It says, your view of me matters more than my own peace. And to a mind wired toward avoidance, that reads as pressure, just a quieter version of it. Every extra explanation is a small plea for reassurance. And seeking reassurance, no matter how gently it is delivered, signals insecurity. Not because you are an insecure person, but because in that specific moment, your actions are broadcasting a need for approval louder than they are broadcasting self-trust.